And then things happened, and I changed my profession from medicine to art, and from art to teaching, and back to art, and so on. My life seems to be a little confusing when you try to describe to people, because I was raised in the Middle East. My mother was European, my father was Egyptian. I think you understand that. Huh? So it was like, since you are young, you are living two different worlds. You know, mother that lives in a community that doesn't understand the heart, she doesn't understand the language, and a father that wants to bring her in and let her feel that she is happy. And then the war comes, and bombs start to fall, and we became refugees from one country to another. So that's the reason you see that I have been moving from one thing to another, from one country to another. Long time ago, our first station was Greece. We lived in Cyprus for a while, and then the war broke in Cyprus. The Turks started to kill the Greeks, and the Greeks started to resist, and it was another horrible thing. We went to Egypt, where my father is from, and the British and the French bombed the town where we lived in. So my grandfather and grandmother died, and the house crumbled under the bombs. We were collecting the ashes. So childhood that started as a refugee and as a dispossessed person was very harsh. It was very difficult to endure during that time. So I went to Italy to learn art. I worked in churches there where I was doing fresco ceiling, and I was restoring old cracks and things like that, making few liras in Italy from doing the restoration. My father called me. He said, I get a heart attack in Alexandria. I went to see him in Alexandria. And he said, you think why you are losing all your time doing art? You know, I think all these people that you see in the masses here, all these hungry people, illiterate people, uneducated, sick people. We had a lot of TB and ankylostomiasis, schistosomiasis, which was killing a lot of farmers. And he said all these people are waiting for somebody to come and make a nice painting of apples or a naked lady to put in the bedroom. Come on. These people need medicine, they need schools, they need education. Why don't you take a profession? And I was like, but I love art. I don't want to do anything else. He said, how about like engineering, medicine, maybe journalism, make something that help people, uplift them, try to bring them from down up. And I said, but I love art. That's all what I need to do. And that's how, when I went back to Italy, I got beaten at the Spanish piazza by some Libyan gangs there, because I was doing portraits. You know, people, time of the hippies and all that, and longer hair and sitting, making nice portrait for people. Portrait would take me like a few seconds to do. And they came to me and said, oh, you're making a lot of money. Give us all the money that you have. And I had some money, yeah, true. So they took the money, but they beat me up. And then, so I had to leave Rome and went to Padua. Padua is very close to the Assisi, where the San Francis Chapel is. And I became so attached to the monks there. And I got a job there, restoration at the chapel, the San Francisco chapel in Assisi. Make some money, and eventually I sent to my dad, and I said I applied for the school in England. And he said, "What school?" I said, "Medical school." And that's how life shifted to the other side. In front of you, this group of art. So this group of paintings, some of them I collected them from people who own them, or they bought them, or they want to keep them. And I said, "Can I take them to the church tomorrow?" And they said, "No." Do you have insurance? And I said, "I'm taking them to a church, for God's sake. Come on, I'm not taking them to even downtown or to a prison." So I got some of them, and some of them I see them after 20 years. So I am like you. I'm looking at them as, oh, that's a good work. Or we should have done it differently, or something like that. So some of them I see them for the first time after all these years. I have to say a few things. After studying art in Italy, I went to Holland, and I loved being in Holland. It's totally different from, very similar to your community here. And I learned there, I got a doctorate in art there while I was in England taking courses in medicine. So I didn't betray my art. And eventually I ended up coming to the US after I translated the poetry of Stanley Kunitz. And I was writing a lot. I was interested in writing, and I was translating Stanley Kunitz poems to Turkish, a little bit Greek, some Arabic that I knew. And the books were selling, and when Stanley knew about it, he invited me to America. And I paid nothing. I didn't pay my ticket to America. It was paid by the State Department. I came here as a visiting artist, and I joined the writers' workshop here. And I get paid too. And Kunitz told me, he said, he was the poet laureate in America, and he said, "Don't worry, you are going to be safe in America." And at the time, there was Vietnam and all that, and I was not very, and he said, "I'm going to take you to the best place in America. That's called Iowa." And he said, "I live in Massachusetts. I don't live in Iowa." But I went to the writer's workshop, and I know a guy with the name of Paul Engel. And Paul will take care of you. And that's exactly what happened. And after that, I met a young woman. I fell in love with her. And she was like interested in my art and interested in my writing and all that, much younger than me. And I was like debating, an older guy and young woman. And then she introduced me to her dad. And then I started to listen to his story. He had a big story, and I thought my story was impressive. But when I heard his story, how his family was all killed in the Holocaust, and then he went and being arrested in Siberia, and went to the Gulag, was beaten and sentenced to death until he escaped. So I thought, wow, this is a very good story. And I found that he was a surgeon too. And at the time, I was a surgeon. I was a transplant surgeon, and he was a plastic surgeon. And we became close friends. And eventually I decided to marry the young woman who's my wife now. And Jordan, remember her, Eva, right? And you have a very close friend of Eva here. And we are together, and she's very supportive, and she tolerates my ups and downs and everything. So that's the story. Then I was lucky to see later a lot of journalists who tried to help me getting back to the writing and get out of the hospital and out of the art and into the writing. And one of them is Jeff Carlson. And Jeff, where's Jeff? He disappeared, right? He knew that I'm going to talk about him. He knew that because there is no way I can not mention him. And even this article that Amy was, it was published by Jeff. And he opened his newspaper to me. I had connections before him. You know, every now and then I write an article, I say something about education, something about medicine. But he said, no, you have to have a regular column there. And I want to put your art and your writing. And I said, wow, that's a beautiful occasion. So he actually gave me the chance to publish, I would think maybe above 400 articles with illustrations. So what I did is I go, for instance, I meet people, I like their story, and I make their portraits. And then next day, I give it to Jeff, and Jeff publishes it. So I got you the original, to see the original painting that I did for this woman, Claudine, for instance, and the article after it was published at Jeff's page on the Press Citizen. As you all probably know, the Press Citizen died after Jeff left. You know. He wrote the death certificate of the Press Citizen. And we all left, as a matter of fact. So this is an example. You see, I have a lot of those, but I'm not going to bother you by, this is again another person, another article, and the original one. Jim LaRue was one of our lawyers here. I made his portrait, and Jeff published the article about him, and I write the story. So this was a good writing too, you know, telling the story and the lessons we can learn from the person, original and article. Over the years, we started maybe on the year 2007, until Jeff left the newspaper, and our group kind of dismantled and scattered. Some of us continued to write, and some of us said, no, that's not my place. It's okay to write about baseball and football. We are not against that, but there was no place for literature after Jeff Carlson had left. See, so those are all portraits, various kinds. And a lot of people say, well, your portraits are very different, you know, like some of them, yeah, it's true. And here, if you look at my artwork, you will see the same observation, that each artwork has a character. It looks like each one is by a different artist. And a lot of people say, yeah, but you have to have a style. And I said, no, because art is freedom. You go to art because you want to express yourself. I am today, not yesterday. Like, for instance, today I am fighting a terminal disease. My perception of the universe of the ambience around me and the people is different from how I was 10 years ago, definitely, or 25 years ago when I came to America 45 years ago, or before that when I was a refugee. It can't be the same. It cannot be the same. So I did a lot of portraits, and it's my chance to thank the man that was behind all this voluminous work. I can go forever just showing you one thing after another. Virginia Myers, some of you know who is she, superintendent of school here. And I see different styles, musicians.
How long did it take you to do one?
It depends. It depends. And I tell you, we used to, Jeff and we used to look at the portrait and he said, oh, I like that. Or he said, oh, I hate this one. I mean, and there were times, you would sit with the person, if you feel like there is language going on, there's chemistry going on, it can take like few minutes. And something, I tell you, something can, this guy, for instance, he's a diplomat, Edgar, and it took me maybe 5 minutes to do his portrait. Yeah, and he was in his way to travel to, I think, Africa, where he was an ambassador there. This lady took me about maybe 15, 20 minutes. She was the vice president of the University of Iowa until last year. This is a Syrian poet that lives in Iowa City, as a matter of fact, Nina Abu Isa. See, each portrait is a very different style, but I kept all the originals. Sometimes it's cartoonish. It depends on the character. So in answering your question, sometimes it takes 5 minutes, sometimes it takes days. This took, I think, few seconds. She's the daughter of a friend of mine who got the Olympics best runner. And I saw her she was in the airport. And she's just leaving. I said, don't worry, give me 1 second. And I did that. And Jeff published it as it is. It's sketch, not refined. And this guy, and I will jump to the story quickly. This guy is Mr. Thomas Moore from Cedar Rapids, and he is the founder of what we call the African American Museum, the first African American museum in the United States. And Thomas Moore was very instrumental in doing that. He was just a regular worker at the cereal place. What's the name of it? What? Quaker Oats, yeah. He was, I think, an accountant there, but he was very active in raising funds and all that. And we worked together, and eventually I volunteered to design the building. And that's why I think Kathleen, okay, we carried this together today. This is my design of the African American Museum in Cedar Rapids. And it was built as it is. And the guy who built it is actually was a very, very talented engineer, structural engineer. This probably is maybe, I consider it the most achievement that I came to get in my life after making some textbooks in medicine, illustrating them for scientific reasons. So those will be the two big things. The African American Museum and the flood came at 2008 to destroy the whole area, but this building remained. Still there now. They are renovating some of it, but it works. I didn't get much credit. I didn't get much recognition about that. But I didn't feel bitter at all. Like after St. Paul, I have to be honest. You do the right thing and don't wait for a reward. The reward may be somewhere else. Maybe somewhere else. Depends on your faith. But I didn't get recognition. My name is not written there. I did the work. I didn't get a thank you. And that's fine. I'm so proud of it. Every now and then I go there. My wife takes my pictures there. And it's very nice. And I was very happy to see that the building sustained the flood. And it's working till this moment. So you saw my work at the newspaper. You saw my work at the community here. What remained now with the Press Citizen is I do something called Christmas Story. And the Christmas story, as a matter of fact, is I think it started with Jeff too, because he had a friend, and he is a writer from Kelowna, very, very good man. And every year he does what we call Christmas Story, something uplifting about the new year. And I illustrated, and I still do this. This is what I did this year. And this is the original, and this is the after printing. This is all my connection with Presbyterian, is to do every year one painting front page at the Christmas time. Any questions? I'll be very happy to answer any of your curious situation. You have any question about the artwork? I do printmaking, a lot of printmaking. I love printmaking, but you know, I mean, with age, of course, printmaking became a little laborious now, because you have to stay hours and hours doing all these scratches on plates that can be copper or brass or whatever, and you do very fine work, and then you ink it and you print it, and the print is not good, so you repeat it again. It's a very laborious process. So this is one example or one print of a series called Genesis, where I try to philosophize at this stage of my life, how life is between the cells and the plants and all that. Most of it is symbolic. And in Genesis, I did a lot of work. I think this series was about 37 prints, all with this signs on copper plates. They're done by a process called engraving, and some of them have etching. And I got you some of that to I think, Kathleen, I think we got some envelope with us, the white envelope that I was carrying. It has a lot of prints. Yeah, I can see it.
You don't mean this one, Hani?
Or maybe, oh yes, it's under here. But this is, you see, this is another print too. And it's okay, I pass it so that you look at the work firsthand and see how it takes effort to do that. Now, of course, I see double. I can't even do the line now. No, seriously, I mean, it's like very delicate and very difficult too. Another copy of this, you see. This is the Genesis again. Genesis, the baby, and the baby is hugged by plants, you see? The unity between the two kingdoms. You can pass it, Sarah, it's okay. You're not going to destroy it, believe me. You can just look at the lines because this is very important. When you see it from far away, it doesn't show all that. Yeah. I think that's all. Yeah, yeah. Maybe there's some here. Yeah, I did some portraits too for the Des Moines Register. I did some cartoons for the Des Moines Register before I joined the Press Citizen. You can ask me anything. I took a lot of your time now, and you spend good time looking at my artwork and honoring me by looking at it.
So Hani, you said something pretty heavy. You said, now I'm dealing with a terminal illness.
Yes.
So as you have evolved in your process and in your representations, how is this latest chapter?
Very good. What happens, as a matter of fact, is, and this is scientific too. I'm going to talk scientifically now. And of course, there are many doctors here. They can argue with me, or I can prove my theory. The mind controls a lot of what we are. You can be diagnosed with something. If you accept it as a fact and final, you're done. You surrender. If you doubt it, say, I don't think it's right. Maybe it's not right. And you keep the hope alive. I think I added to my life maybe 10 or 12 more years because of this. And I go, I'm very dizzy. I cannot sustain. I cannot sit. I cannot do that. No, try. So the mind over the body is very important. And I think the mind can treat the body too, if you want to. I have a friend of mine that you can sit with him and he would say, for instance, put your hand on my pulse. I put my hand. He said, count. I said, 80. He said, okay, wait. And he closes his eyes and he said, count now. I count, it's 130, 130. And I said, how did you get that? He said, I ordered my heart. I pushed my heart to be faster. The mind has the power. It secretes chemicals that controls your body. If you want to live, you want to live. You want to die, you give up. You give in. I have a brother who was 27 years old. 2 beautiful little babies he had. And one time he came and we were both smoking a lot. And he said, I'm dying of cancer. And I said, why don't you just live? And he said, no, I'm dying. He convinced himself that he's done. 3 weeks later, he bled to death and died. So I tell you what, if you insist that you want to live, you will live. And I'm ready to argue with anybody. I've been doing medicine for 55 years. I dissected the body, I dissected the brain, I I wrote books about the body, and I'm ready to argue with anyone about that. I know that the brain secretes medications that we call endorphins, whatever it is, that controls everything. If you want to be happy, you will be happy. Interest now. This is my last project that I used to love dancing myself until I broke my bones in wars. In wars. I was working for the UN in Africa, and we had a field mines that destroyed our cars. And a lot of people died, and I broke most of my bones. I cannot really keep my balance very well at all. No. I have screws and nails and things like that. So I am very frustrated because I cannot dance, but I love dancing. And since then, I had in my mind that I am the new Degas or Toulouse-Lautrec, you know. And I go where there is ballet. Now I'm writing a ballet, writing it, write the script, writing the scenes, and working with a professor of dancing here with the name of Eloy Barragan. And we are going to have a big production. And this is a ballet that's built on the story. Of course, most of you know about Geoffrey Chaucer, the famous father of English literature. We're talking here 15th century. And he wrote something called Canterbury Tales. One of them is Miller Tale. Most people who took courses in literature and poetry and all that, they know that. So I am using Miller Tale as a base for my new ballet that eventually ended up, the message is women, freedom, and justice for women. Because I myself think, and that's my concept, and whatever I hear about women being treated on equal basis, women have the rights full, I don't think we currently in this community, in this age, in this time of the world, are treating women the way it should be. I see abuse, I see exploitation, I see assaults everywhere, I see the love boy always goes free, and the woman is always to be blamed. So the whole ballet is focused on this. Alison, from the Miller Tale, is going to liberate herself from the abuse by the old husband, from the abuse by the young abusive lover, and will get her freedom. So we're working on that. So here is Alison. Here is Alison dancing. And Alison is a regular woman. She's not Twiggy, okay? Like all the ballerinas, you know. She's a normal lady. And she's dancing with, I don't know if somebody knows the Vestal Virgins. The Vestal Virgins in old Rome were a group of virgins that are responsible for protecting the temple, but they have to promise or write a contract or something like that, that they will stay virgins all their lives, at least for 30 years. So here they are dancing, and she's one of them. But she wants to liberate herself from this contract that puts limits on her, that tells her what to do with her own body, you know. So Alison is dancing here, and then this is the controversial part of the play, or whatever you want to call it, theater, ballet. But this is very controversial because eventually Sarah one of her would dance with her. And the choreographer thought this may have a message, subliminal message, that I am promoting homosexuality, but that's not in my mind, absolutely. So I'm trying now to write the script in a way that doesn't show that this dance in particular, that the end of the show, it doesn't mean at all that she rejected all men and she selected a woman, okay? If you want to do it this way, fine. What's wrong with that? If this is the concept, what's so bad about it? You are not Allison. I mean, that's her body, her responsibility. So this one in particular, the last one, is the most controversial one in the ballet. If we get it to be accepted, that would be wonderful, I think. Questions? But thank you for talking about the dance was very important for me. Yeah, it's my mission now. Yeah. The dance is a combination of all arts. It's music, it's everything, lights.
Do you use models?
Yes, all the time.
Hi, Hani.
Oh, hi, Jordan.
Hi.
Jordan was my kid, was my student when she was like that.
I wasn't that short.
No, I mean, age-wise, you were 13 or something.
I met you when I was
14, okay, big deal. I made one.
28.
Okay,
Almost 23.
Jordan, go ahead. But you didn't mention that you were a good artist.
I am a good
Manette.
artist, and I had a good teacher.
And actually, in my living room, I have your painting on my wall. Yes. That. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I love you, Hani.
Yeah.
And I'm super
I
proud
love
of
you too, Jordan.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
proud of
Thank you. Questions? Oh, that's a very good question. This is the technique that's used for that. This is a wood block, and you engrave it with the tool, and then you ink it and get a print. This is one last copy of. You see, I lived in places where tragic events are happening, and that gave me a lot of hope that if you can teach people how to dream and how to overcome the tragic events in their lives, you may be able to change their lives. So most of my life I spent in areas where there's hunger, civil war. A lot of people say, "Oh, you were a transplant surgeon. How rich are you?" I never drove a new car in my life. I have an old car. I consider myself adequately living. At least I can pay now for my Oak North, which is really expensive. But I tell you, I mean, it is not easy. So I'm not rich at all. My medicine was spent all in Africa or in Southeast Asia. I was volunteering. I was doing trauma surgery in battlefields. I got hepatitis. I got malaria. My liver was destroyed. And now I live with the cancer in my liver because of that. And I will not, if I start again, I will do the same. So when I decided to leave medicine because of many factors, the least of them was that I could not see very well, I could not stand very well. And I went to the education and I worked with the kids My story was not different from their story. We're both trying to uplift each other, help each other. I learned a lot from them. You heard from Jordan that I was a giver. I was a taker too. I mean, I learned from them a lot. So this is one of the tragic events where destruction ends up with the lonely kid and the dog and the death of everybody else. Tragic events in Africa. I was in Ethiopia at that time when a rebellious army coup against Haile Selassie happened, and the communists took over there, and a lot of people died. A lot of people ended up. I made about maybe 180 sketches there of people carrying their babies and people dying and all. Well, the genius about Lazansky, I was there when this happened. Lazansky never saw the Holocaust, and I think he lived in Argentina, as you know. But he heard a lot of stories and he imagined it and he made nice sketches and all that. Yeah, I respect his experience, but my experience was firsthand. I lived through that. I saw the blood, I saw the fires, I saw the bones shattered. Yeah. Thank you. Any other comments? Any other questions? Kathleen, you don't have any question for me? My mom and dad. My mom lived until she was 60, and she got a massive stroke. And my dad, he died at 62 with a heart attack in Egypt. He died in Egypt. She died in Istanbul, Turkey. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? You can ask me any personal question. I have no problem with that. The man is wolf to man. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And it is very important for me to mention that your late husband, as a matter of fact, was my colleague at the anatomy department at the University of Iowa. And your late husband got, I think, 50 times, maybe 40 something, teacher of the year at the College of Medicine, right? 45 times. And the last 4 of them were shared with me. And he came to me, introduced himself. He said, I've been getting this for 50 years, and now you're getting it from me. And we became very good friends. And then your daughter became the teacher of my baby, Nina. Yeah. Any questions? Nina is doing well, graduated from Harvard, not as a lawyer, not as a doctor. She's environmentalist. Yeah. She, in her genes and walking, doing research, writing about plants, about toxic materials, about pesticides, about insecticides, about water pollution. That's what she wanted to do. And a lot of people say, oh, she's an extension of you. I said, no, she's herself. I didn't do that for her. Everybody said, oh, she went to Harvard. Maybe she'd be a lawyer, famous lawyer. No, absolutely. Any other questions? Which one? Which one are you curious about? This one? This one? This one, as a matter of fact, is one of my students at the time, and she had a baby from this guy who was killed in Iraq. and it was difficult for me to ask her to pose for me, but she was willing. She said, "Okay." I said, "Can you bring your baby? I'm going to make it more modern, not very realistic, proportions and all that. I'm going to make something expressionism." And she got the picture of her husband, put it next to her, and I sketched it. I did about 4 or 5 sketches with charcoal, and then I made the painting. Again, he lost his life for unnecessary war, unfortunately. He shouldn't have gone to Iraq to begin with. Any other questions? That's very good questions. I mean, every one of them has a story in them. Those two are, this is last year Christmas story, the Press Citizen. This is the year before it, 2021, this one. Sorry, this was last year, this was the year before. I'm going to get quickly to this controversial one here because I hesitated. I'm doing this in a church now, and I have made no decision if this is really. But I put a lot of effort to make this one. I was in Rome, and I was doing a lot of art, and I heard about the shroud. I went to Torino, and I tried to get to the church to see the shroud. And they didn't even have a shroud. They had the shroud, and they have Veronica's sheet. Now, of course, everybody knows Veronica's sheet from the story that the Lord was walking through the Via della Rosa, sweating. Blood was covering his face. Veronica ran to him and tried to dry his face, and she took this handkerchief or sheet. She kept it. It showed his features on it. And the features that were on the shroud were very close to that. And I was sitting there, there was a glass window, and I'm sitting doing sketches, taking it 1 millimeter by another millimeter, try to get all the patches of the blood, all the reflection of the light on it. I went there for about 21 days making sketches. I have a box of sketches for this, and it ended up with this one painting. People are disputing it. Some people are, we proved it by carbon 14, that it was really the shroud of Jesus Christ. Other people say, no, it was one of his friends or one of the people that were with him. How do we know? And some people said it was not, but it was blood, really. It was blood on the shroud. I mean, it's very easy, as you know, DNA, it's so easy to detect the blood after all these years. So is it true or not true? That's not my issue. My issue was it was very inspiring for me to be sitting there in front of the shroud and try to see. The last day there, they kicked me out. They said, we are closing it. No more people can come and see it. Because people come with their cameras and things like that and their infection. So they closed it for people. I was among the last people to see the shroud. So I keep it. It's for me inspiring. I look at it every day. I don't want you to do the same, but it has special affinity to me. Yeah, no doubt about that. Any other questions? This one is my series of what I call it grotesque paintings. And it's really not very pleasant to look at. I mean, it's not something that you like flowers or something. And this was the issue of greed and how do we spend our lives, like running for this, eating dollars and forgetting our fate. This is actually the truth. So this is a print, yeah. It's a very sophisticated kind of print. I did, I think, 3 of them only. This one is donkey hat, donkey shot. A lot of people, when they hear my story, they think this is a self-portrait. Yeah. They said that you are walking in the street, fighting the windmills with a wooden sword and a dying mule. So it's a self-portrait, okay? Any other questions, please? The group of African people? Yeah, this I did a series of paintings in Ethiopia. I was stationed in Dar es Salaam, which is the capital of Tanzania at the time, working for the UN peacekeeping forces. Of course, it's not peacekeeping forces. We don't keep anything at all. So they moved me to Ethiopia because there was a little village there that was kind of ambushed by the troops of the old army against the communist army that were trying to liberate them. And we went there and I saw the massacre. So I lived through that. I did a lot of painting, and this is one of them. Well, a lot of people think that this is my best painting. I think this is the only one that my wife keeps from this group, I think. It is, again, it was, I don't know how to tell you the story, but when I have an uncle who wrote a lot about life and death and all that, and he was talking to me about the bridge all the time. There is a bridge. If you can cross the bridge, if you can go back to the bridge, and I never understood what he meant by bridge until he died, and I put my uncle portrait. I copied it from a lot of pictures that he had, and I made a bridge. And I don't know what it says, what it tells, what's the bridge. He never told me, but he kept, when I was young, I remember his words, a bridge, a bridge. So I said, well, it's an expression anyway, but it doesn't denote much. Is it like the transition between, is he thinking about crossing the bridge? Is it impossible to cross the bridge between life and death? Something like that. But it's called the bridge. And yeah, this one won a lot of prizes. Everywhere I take it, it gets like something. Because people like it. I think, Amy, I think we are at the end of our trip here. So thank you very much. It's a big, big favor for me. I will never be with my artwork again. I mean, I can't believe that they came. Yeah, I mean, I will not be able to have all this group because tonight I'm going to take this to Nancy and this to Caitlin and this to Jordan and then I'm going to be left with the bridge that I can't even cross. Thank you.